It's that Hamas has to disarm. It's that Hamas has to actually behave itself, and that Hamas, while all the fighters can be given some sort of clemency, and if Hamas doesn't cooperate, then as the President of the United States has said, Hamas is going to be obliterated.
US Vice President JD Vance stood before cameras in Kiryat Gat on October 21st, flanked by American and international flags, promising that Hamas will be obliterated if it doesn't cooperate. But the details of his message reveal something more complicated. While threatening total destruction, Vance refused to set any deadline for the militant group to lay down its weapons.
Now again, that's going to take a little bit of time. We're talking about how to set up the security and humanitarian apparatus to put all this in place. But right now, where I stand, I feel confident that we're going to be in a place where this peace lasts, where it's durable. And if Hamas doesn't cooperate, then as the President of the United States has said, Hamas is going to be obliterated.
Speaking from the newly established Civilian Military Coordination Center, Vance told reporters that the ceasefire is proceeding better than expected. The facility, where hundreds of troops and officials from the United States, Israel, Britain, Canada, Denmark, Germany and Jordan are now stationed, represents Washington's most significant ground presence in managing the fragile truce. But what does cooperation actually mean? Vance outlined a path that seems designed to allow Hamas fighters back into civilian life, not eliminate them entirely. He explained that Hamas operatives can receive clemency under specific conditions.
It's that Hamas has to disarm. It's that Hamas has to actually behave itself, and that Hamas, while all the fighters can be given some sort of clemency, they're not going to be able to kill each other, and they're not going to be able to kill their fellow Palestinians.
The Vice President emphasized repeatedly that implementing President Trump's 20-point plan will take time.
Not going to do what the President of the United States has thus far refused to do, which is put an explicit deadline on it, because a lot of this stuff is difficult. A lot of this stuff is unpredictable. You basically have two regions in Gaza, one of which is relatively safe, I wouldn't say very safe, and one of which is incredibly dangerous. And part of ensuring that we get to a durable peace is to broaden the scope of the area that's safe. And the International Security Force is a big part of that. We don't yet have the International Security Force set up. That's something we're working towards. We have a number of volunteers who want to participate in that International Security Force. So my point is, I don't think it's actually advisable for us to say this has to be done in a week, because a lot of this work is very hard. It's never been done before. And in order for us to give it a chance to succeed, we've got to be a little bit flexible.
On the question of foreign troops supporting the ceasefire, Vance made clear that Washington won't push Israel to accept forces it doesn't want.
Everybody has a role to play here. Some of that's going to be financial, some of that's going to be in reconstruction, some of that's just in communication with the various parties to ensure that this deconfliction process actually works and is implemented. We're not going to force anything on our Israeli friends when it comes to foreign troops on their soil, but we do think that there's a constructive role for the Turks to play, and frankly, they've already played a very constructive role. We're very grateful for that.
Vance also used his appearance to criticize Western media coverage, claiming there's a weird attitude and almost a desire to root for failure in reporting on Israeli military actions during the ceasefire. He referred to Hamas as a terrorist organization and said the Israeli military was defending itself throughout the conflict. President Trump's peace plan calls for an immediate international stabilization force in Gaza. But according to diplomats and officials familiar with ongoing discussions, that force isn't materializing. The reason is simple. Countries that might contribute troops don't want their soldiers fighting Hamas on Israel's behalf. The New York Times reports that representatives from several likely participant countries have said privately they won't commit troops until there's clarity about the mission. Their main concern is that their forces should not be expected to engage Hamas militants, many of whom remain heavily armed. For several countries, that prospect alone would be enough to withdraw from consideration. Some nations have also indicated privately that they don't want their troops in Gaza's city centers because of dangers posed by Hamas and its tunnel networks, according to people familiar with the discussions who spoke on condition of anonymity. Sunday's violence in Gaza illustrated exactly why countries are hesitant. Palestinian militants attacked Israeli-held territory, killing 2 Israeli soldiers, according to the Israeli military. Israel responded with bombardment of what it described as Hamas installations, killing 45 Palestinians according to Gaza health officials. Recent discussions have included Indonesia, Egypt, Turkey, and Azerbaijan as potential contributors, according to 2 diplomats. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey would join a task force described as overseeing the ceasefire, though it remains unclear whether he meant the stabilization force specifically. Some in Israel's leadership are skeptical about Turkey playing a leading role given Erdogan's repeated condemnation of Israel over the past 2 years. President Prabowo Subianto of Indonesia said during a United Nations speech last month that his country was ready to deploy 20,000 or more troops to help secure peace in Gaza. The absence of this force creates a serious contradiction. Without it, Gaza could be left with Hamas as the only governing authority. Meanwhile, Israel's military is unlikely to withdraw further until an international force is ready to replace it. And Hamas has shown no willingness to disarm without seeing Israeli withdrawal first. However, on Truth Social today, Trump wrote that
numerous of our now great allies in the Middle East and areas surrounding the Middle East have explicitly and strongly, with great enthusiasm, informed me that they would welcome the opportunity, at my request, to go into Gaza with a heavy force and straighten out Hamas if Hamas continues to act badly. I told these countries, and Israel, not yet. There is still hope that Hamas will do what is right. If they do not, an end to Hamas will be fast, furious, and brutal.
Meanwhile, the reality on the ground tells a different story. The Turkish aid organization IHH, designated as a terrorist organization by Israel and banned in Germany and the Netherlands, has begun operating openly in Gaza. Today, the group published footage showing water distribution using tankers marked with Turkish flags. On October 18th, IHH posted video of bulldozers bearing Turkish flags clearing rubble in the territory. Salih Mutlu Sen, the Turkish ambassador to Egypt, posted on social media that IHH
has begun supporting efforts in northern Gaza by providing humanitarian aid, as well as assisting with environmental cleanup, road clearing, and debris removal to restore basic living conditions following the ceasefire.
IHH organized the 2010 Mavi Marmara flotilla to Gaza, where 10 Turkish activists were killed in a violent confrontation with Israeli naval commandos. The gap between Trump's claims of eager allies and the actual reluctance of countries to deploy forces reveals the fragility of the current arrangement. Without international troops willing to take over security responsibilities, without Hamas disarming, and without clear deadlines or enforcement mechanisms, the ceasefire rests on hope rather than structure.